Freemasonry, we all know about it, we've all read about it, we've all heard about it, and today we're going to attempt, if we can, to unravel some of the mysteries of this most secret of all societies. We did promise you a few months ago, I said that we'd look at Freemasonry. Now, over the course of the last, I suppose, 10 or 12 years, this ministry has collected a lot of valuable documents from all different sources. We're going to come to some of them in a minute. But I'd like to start with a quote which came from the Catholic Directory of 1960, and I now read, "It has been maintained that Freemasonry is unknown to most of its craft, managed by 5 or 6 Jews who bend its influence in every possible way to work against Christianity." That's from the Catholic Dictionary 1960. Now I want to move on quite quickly because we're going to cover a lot of ground here. We've got some wonderful books we're going to try and do, either in this part or a part 2. Barry Smith, wonderful 2 books there, and a wonderful book by W.J. McCormack on Christ, the Christian and Freemasonry. Because that's what we try to do at this ministry. We try to give a Christian perspective on Freemasonry, why you ought to get into it, why you ought to get out of it. Now, first of all, I'm going back to a wonderful document that came in Punch. You remember the satirical magazine Punch, which was owned by the controversial Mohammed Al-Fayed, he who owns the Harrods in London and the Ritz Hotel in Paris. And Punch, wonderful magazine at the time, it's now defunct, put out this registration form, roll up your trouser leg, how to join the Masons. And it all goes through it, how you can join here. They want to know all about you. Have you ever been convicted in court of any offence? No, I've not been convicted, and so forth. Bit of a spoof document, but a lot of truth in there, all about the Masons. And he kept it running for several weeks, and a week later, quitting the Freemasons, I rather like this one, and he highlights some of the lodges here. James Companion, the United Grand Lodge, the Temple Chapter of Jerusalem, the Royal Archmasons of England, and it's got the names, the documents and the stories behind Britain's secret society. It'll knock your garters off. Typical L5 joke there. I think he always felt that the Masons were against him. Little joke there that came from Punch there. You can see it here. This was a letter that the Grand Lodge of England wrote to Mohammed Al-Fayed, well, or the editor of Punch. They weren't very happy with what was happening there, and you can see that there. Maybe you'll have to freeze frame this and read a little bit more. And he ended up with a joke at the bottom here. "Fancy setting up a grocer's with me. This is Fortnum and Mason. Fortnum and Mason, get it? Only if you know my secret handshake." And another little joke, if I can lay my hands on it, as regards Masons, they can laugh at themselves, although I think this was a little bit different. And this came from this document I picked up somewhere, I'm not quite sure, page about Freemasonry, probably picked this up about 10 years ago, all about getting Masonic rings and current announcements, requests for correspondence, so forth. Little joke at the bottom, quite liked. "Thought for the day, enough about secret Masonic handshakes already, let's come up with secret Masonic milkshakes." Like it? Good one. Now, to get back onto a more serious track. About 10, 12 years ago, I went to a book fair in Crystal Palace, South London. I went to the end of it, actually. I'd missed the morning, and there was a gentleman there selling up some stuff there. And he said, "What are you looking for?" I said, "Oh, anything about Freemasonry, about the craft and so forth." He said, "Well, I've got some documents here." He said, "You can have all of them for £1." So I said, "Yes, please." Got home, opened them up, and I was absolutely amazed and delighted to come across these 3 documents. Now, as you can see here, these were awarded to this gentleman, Edward Charles Towers. Don't know the gentleman, don't know anything about him, but it seems in 1967 he qualified to move up to the next degree, the 18th degree, and that you can see it there. Out of 33 degrees he qualified to become the part of the Rosy Cross there. Don't know what happened to him afterwards. I don't know whether he died, whether he went higher up or not at all. But you can see the 2-headed eagle there, Russian symbol there, and Kaiser Germany as well, he also used that symbol. But this is the Supreme Council telling us that Brother Edward Charles Towers, I don't know who he was to say, was qualified to have this wonderful there. You see the 2 great seals there. Never seen these before, and I doubt anybody else would have seen these, except the person who actually got them. Now, also in this job lot was another one, which, if I can get open, again, a wonderful document, wonderful vellum paper and so forth. A little bit earlier, this one, we go to 1950, I think it's 1953, yes, 1953. Again, the Supreme Grand and Royal Chapter of Royal Archmasons of England awarding this gentleman this splendid document, which he probably had framed and had up in his study. There you see a seal there. see and sits in there then, that he has reached a new degree here then. It says what the degree is there. Bond of Friendship in London, and there's his number, 4853, September 1953. And round about the same date, this one was also in there. Another splendid document. Again, the same gentleman, Mr. Towers, again 1952 when he received this. True Friendship, there's his number, 6631 in the London Lodge. Right Honourable the Earl of Scarbungley, it says there, KC, Grand Master, awarding it to this gentleman. And I suspect probably what happened was that these are on the wall. He may have gone actually high and gone up to the 33 degrees. Now, as you know, in Masonry there are 33 degrees. Now I've done a little map here, a little chart, if I can lay my hands on it. It's a little thing I did myself to give you some idea of it. Ah, here it is here. Now, you probably know most of this, but the first degree is entered apprentice, then we go to master mason and so forth. Entered apprentice and master mason and fellow craft. So entered apprentice, fellow craft, master mason. Most masons, I'm told by a mason, will get no higher than this. This will suit them for their business purposes, for business deals and so forth. But you start going up the chart there. And our friend who we've just seen was up to number 18, which, if I can see it, there it is there, the Knight of the Rosy Cross. So he's halfway there and he's moving up very, very quickly. Now, you've seen all the documents there. Oh, another little thing there. We're always told in Freemasonry that so much of the money goes to charities. This came from Punch, again, by two journalists, and they claim here that the Duke of Kent has acknowledged that of the 16 million net expenditure by the major Masonic charities last year, only 1.3 million, just over 8%, went to non-Masonic charities. So it's very much an apartheid thing there, that so much stays in there. Now, moving along quickly, and forgive me for this, but we're trying to get so much packed in on this there. We move along now to some of the books, and if James Companion on some of the books here that we've got. We're going to be able to do this, or maybe we'll have to do a part 2 on this. I'm going to wind it up here now. I'm going to have a little break. We'll come back later and we'll look at these two books. So till then, a little bit of Masonry, Maranatha. Well, welcome again to this ministry as we journey through this discovery of Freemasonry, and we got a lot more information to give to you, which we didn't get into the one which we unfortunately had to remove. But I'd like to start off with a cover my wife did some years ago, an A to Z of Freemasonry, and there you see the great architect of the universe and the all-seeing eye. But over the years we've collected a lot of information, a lot of fact sheets and documents have been sent to us and so forth. So if I can start off with something that came out of the now defunct magazine Punch, and it says here, the Duke of Kent has acknowledged that of the 16 million net expenditure by the major Masonic charities last year, only 1.35 million, just over 8%, went to non-Masonic charities. So they're always saying we do so much for charities. Let's say only 8% went there, and that was from the Duke of Kent, who of course was the Freemason and is the head of the order now. Now this is a little chart I put together, very sort of basic, but it gives you some ideas, the top 33 degrees there, and you can see that we start off with the entered apprentice, the second degree fellow craft, and the third degree master mason. And I was told by a mason many, many years ago that very, very few masons will get beyond the master mason. And as you saw through some of the documents we had last time, the gentleman, he got this high, 18. But anyway, that's that there now. Now, here we have the unveiling secrets of the list of companies and portfolios, British Energy, BP, Norwich Union and so forth, all tied in with it. Here's something I picked up some years ago, a page about Freemasonry. I don't know where I got it from, but it's a miscellaneous book that you could buy, certain lapel pins, rings and so forth. And I rather like the joke on the back here, thought for today, enough about secret Masonic handshakes, let's come up with a secret Masonic milkshake. Should we laugh at ourselves? I don't think so, very, very serious. Now, we mentioned Punch, and most of these documents have come from Punch. Punch, of course, as you know, was owned by the controversial Mohammed Al-Fayed, he who owns the Harrods and, of course, the Ritz in Paris. And he spent quite a lot of time outing the Freemasons and so forth. A lot of it's spoof, but a lot of it is fact. You can see the United Grand Lodge, the Temple chapter at Jerusalem, the Royal Arch Masons, and they didn't like what he'd done at all, one little bit. And if I just turn the page over, they wrote him a stinking letter, as you can see here, to the editor of Punch, saying what they didn't like about it. And of course they mention the fact that they've raised money for charities and so forth, as they say here, bilked financially. They put milked there and so forth. So, but it does say, another little joke at the bottom there, James Campan down, Fortnum and Mason, well-known store in London, fancy setting up a grocer store with me, only if you know my secret, handshake and so forth. But Punch did go through all of this, and here they have the roll up your trouser leg, how to join the Masons. A little bit of a spoof here, but it's the actual United Grand Lodge of England registration form, how to join. I've never been convicted of any court offence. I've never been subject to finding of dishonest or disgraceful conduct, and so forth and so forth. Very, very good. Mohammed put this out there. I like it. I kept it. And here you're seeing it possibly for the first time. The magazine's now defunct and so forth. Another little thing I picked up, which came out of the Catholic Dictionary of 1960. It has been maintained that Freemasonry is unknown to most of its craft, managed by 5 or 6 Jews who bend its influence in every possible way to work against Christianity. And this is the whole thing about Freemasonry, that it leads into not only to the occult, but to Bilderberg, trilateral groups, and all of these things there, where they say here it's controlled by 5 or 6 Jews. Wouldn't be saying it now, because the ban on Freemasonry was lifted by the last Pope, Pope John Paul II, who lifted it all. I wonder why. Right. We go back to Punch again here, boys in the Brotherhood, and you can see here he's actually gone and puts it in 1998, he's actually got names in here and who these people are. A lot of honourables there, there's a couple of lords there, there's a captain, military and so forth. And interesting in this paragraph, the royal family has a long history of being raised to the 33rd degree. Members included Edward VIII, the Duke of Windsor, George VI and Prince Michael of Kent. The latter is open about his connection, but when a Mason wants to remain undetected, he will find support. So there we have it there. A lot of things there, people who are involved in it, Viscount Chelsea, Lord Chelsea, probably people you've never heard of before, but very, very important in the English establishment. Now, a friend of ours sent us these documents here. Who says the Church of England isn't tied in with Freemasonry? Here you have a vicar wearing his clerical garb and his Masonic symbol and his white gloves, probably holding a King James Bible with a Masonic symbol on there. We'll come a bit later what Barry Smith said. It says, brethren, one of the delights of being a parish priest and a chaplain to various organisations, he means Masons, is I get plenty of invitations to attend Christmas carol concerts and other Christmas functions, not only in the parish, but often far beyond. Shame on you doing all this. Here we are, Reverend Brother, the Reverend Ron Gamble. Ron, you're gambling with your salvation. Get out of it if you haven't got out of it already. Ron, Gamble, you're gambling your salvation. Get out of it, and get out of it quick. Right, we move on quickly, because we've got a lot to get through. Some very, very good stuff here there. And here's something that came in the same magazine, 100 years birthday and 2 PGMs here. And there's the group of Masons from a lodge down in Kent, and there's the Masonic floor there, and somebody said to saying, why picture of the Queen? Well, of course the Queen is the honorary head of the Freemasons, I'm told, worldwide, so you see that there. Another infamous gentleman who was tied up with the Masons, we've had the lords and ladies, Ken Noy, the life and crimes of Kenneth Noy. Criminal mastermind, cop killer and millionaire, Britain's deadliest villain, abandoned his country estate to go on the run in 1996. Was a Mason, tied up very much with the Metropolitan Police, some of the top brass there, in prison now for a murder that happened on the M25. Now, I want to move on very quickly because we've got a lot of information to tell you about anyway. Very good at Punch doing all of that. And I want to look at 2 very good books. I'm going to start with the first one, Christ, the Christian and Freemasonry, written by the late W.J. McCormack. I had the pleasure of talking to his wife about 10 or 12 years about this book. She said he did a lot of research in this, he put a lot of his own money into it, but he was very much concerned what the role of Freemasonry and the way it was creeping in an insidious way into the politics of Northern Ireland and to the Presbyterian churches and so forth there. So if I can open this book, it got to the 3rd edition, if I can open up the book here, it starts with a pen and ink drawing of Roberto Calvi. Now we at this ministry, my son and I, have always been interested in the machinations and the murder of Calvi, and we've long suspected the Vatican were involved in it. And if you look at our book that we reviewed only a few weeks ago by David Yallop, he hints in there that there was a top Vatican diplomat who was involved in it. He was going to name the name, hasn't named it yet, so we look forward to hearing that. Turning over, here we see a prepared candidate for the entered apprentice degree. Remember, that's the first degree. Now, I hope he's not one of my relatives, and you probably hope he's not one of yours, because quite honestly, if you saw one of your relations standing like that, the trouser leg rolled up, the shirt ripped, the rope across there, the blinds and so forth, all to be prepared to taken into the craft to be presented to the other Masons. It's shocking, isn't it, when you think your family, probably your father or your grandfather, uncle or whoever, went through all of this. And I remember someone in our family was very embarrassed by it a few years ago. And a couple of interesting little photographs he's picked up here. Muslim becomes new master of Jewish Freemasons Lodge. And there he is there, the Muslim there, looks like his Jewish brother there. Can you see that? The Jewish Freemason. And we pan over there to Dr. Lundell has been appointed Senior Grand Chaplain of the Masonic Order, a unique distinction for a Presbyterian minister. And this whole thing sickened the late Dr. McCormack when he wrote this book there. And he does bring up some very interesting Bible verses, which I'll come back to at the end there. But he does say here, from, let's go up to this one here. Here we are. The central figure of the only saving gospel of God is Jesus Christ. Sinners need Jesus Christ and may accept him by faith. Only those who do God's will gain heaven. What is his will? This is the will of God, that you believe on him whom he has sent, and I receive you, and you my sons and daughters. And he's saying, get out of it quick. Move on very quickly to the late great Barry Smith. I had the pleasure of meeting this gentleman many times. I got him so most of my books. Here's his first book, Second Warning. If I was the devil, he said, I would have invented religion in the place of relationship. And he goes into a very interesting section in his book there, How to Set a Freemason Free. Very interesting, but we haven't got time to go into it now, but he's quite clear. If you're a Freemason, you need to get out of it. And he also says that when you've died, burn everything there, the buckles, the regalia and everything. Here's another one of his books here, Freemasonry and the Occult, and he goes into a great deal of fact about here, Freemasonry and the demons, how you've got to get out of it, warnings and so forth. Go home and burn, destroy all his Freemasonry gear. Help him pray the prayer of renunciation of Freemasonry, which he mentions in Second Warning and so forth, and pray for his healing. And I'm going to go back to the late Dr. McCormack's book there, because he does have a Bible reading there that I would like to show you there. And it comes from here, Woe to the woman who ties amulets on everybody's wrist, Ezekiel 13:18. That's the whole thing about this ministry. You've got to get out of it. This is demonic based. Come out of it now, my brothers. Come out of it now. Repent, and I receive you, and you roll my sons and daughters, says the Lord Almighty. From this ministry, thank you. I hope you've enjoyed this. Get back to us, and Maranatha.